Welcome to the official Jets podcast powered by Amazon Web Services. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen, joined by the assistant GM of the New York Jets, Rex Hogan. Rex, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Yeah, one of the busiest men in the National Football League this week. Assistant GM of the New York Jets. Yeah, you know what about how the process has maybe changed, because it's a made-for-TV event now, the workouts, NFL Network televising these guys in prime time, and for years I'd look for you guys, and at night you would be actually doing formal interviews. I got to imagine a lot of things are flipped for you.
It's exactly what it is. It's been flipped. Early part of the week, it's pretty much the same schedule, but just now we've changed it so that, like you said, the primetime schedule from 4 p.m. to 11 o'clock at night on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday it'll be starting at 2 and then go till probably 9 o'clock at night. So it's just different. We're having the interviews earlier in the morning now, and on Wednesday, Thursday, today it'll be much more extended with the interviews throughout. So you just adjust to it. It's part of it. Pressure's put on the players too, in terms of that, having where they've come from in terms of their preparation, that they might have been getting up early in the morning. Now all of a sudden they've got to start training a little bit differently and preparing their bodies to be ready from that 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock window.
I remember a few years ago in your first stint with the New York Jets, we sat in Lucas Oil watching some of the drills, and I said, what do you try to get out of this? And you said, what you're trying to see here is that what they do on the field validates the tape.
Exactly. And it's part of the process. And we always call each aspect of it is a certain piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously a major piece of the puzzle. But it's good because you can see them, who the guys are kind of rise the cream to the top in terms of each one of the position groups from a competitive standpoint. And you just see those guys kind of shine. And when they get under the lights, and it's a whole different situation for them, and all of a sudden you see like guys start to separate themselves. So if it's, say, a 3-horse race at a receiver, a defensive back, the guy who's the best usually kind of shows himself.
I was also told once that the combine can break up the clusters, to your point. If there's like a group of guys that have similar grades, maybe the combine helps set the order. But I wanted to ask you about the interviews, because now that the interviews are earlier and the bench press is going on right now behind us.
Let's go.
So if you hear some other noise, it's that. Is there a different feel to the interviews being at a different time? Like, I know the structure will remain the same, but is it at all different that the drills and everything comes later in the day and the first thing is the interview?
Yeah, I think that'll be a little different for them, because in the past, on the day that they work out, they don't have interviews in the morning.
Right.
So that'll be a little bit of something for them to adjust to. But they're traditionally the same, aspect in terms of, what we want to find out from them.
For sure.
In terms of their background, what they know in terms of football, their football intelligence, type of system they were in, their ability to communicate what they played in, and their football knowledge overall.
March 18th, the start of free agency. You are the assistant general manager of the New York Jets. So not only are you getting ready for the draft in late April, you guys have 21 unrestricted free agents, a couple RFAs, and, of course, you're looking elsewhere at expiring contracts. How do you go about making a board for the draft and making a board for free agency in terms of targets? Is it very similar?
Yeah, so throughout the fall we do a progress in terms of, the college scouts are on the road. They're doing a great job of identifying the college prospects for us. But at the same time, the pro personnel department is doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So we've got guys tagged and alerted that everybody knows, hey, this guy's going to be a UFA or an RFA, potential cap cut. So somebody we need to know about. And so throughout the fall, those are taking priority in terms of what the pro scouts are looking at, as well as their individual teams. So it kind of sets a board for us for when we go into our January meetings. And then, we have our January meetings with going to a pro personnel free agency meeting. We just had college scouts in for 11 days, and so we went over to the guys who were, draft prospects, priority free agent prospects. So we're setting the board, but to make a long story short, it's a delicate balance between both.
Yeah.
Good thing we've got a great pro staff. We got a great college staff, and, helps us make our jobs easier in terms of building up to the selection process in April.
What's this week been like for you coming back to Indianapolis, obviously where you lived and you used to be a part of the Colts? So what is it like for you to come back to this place?
Yeah, it was a little surreal, flying in. I was like, oh, man. in the transition back in June when I left there to come here. So I was, other than moving out of my house in past July, that's the first time that I've been back. So, it was like, it felt like just yesterday, but at the same time felt like so long ago, if that makes sense. So it was cool to be back. I had some buddies from the old neighborhood come down and meet me for dinner the other night. So always good to connect, man. Seeing not only guys with the Colts, but, stadium employees and other people around the city who you've seen and gotten to know over the past 2 years. So it's good to connect.
I know they are very different people, obviously, but maybe some similarities in approach between Chris Ballard and Jets GM Joe Douglas, because when I think of the Colts and what you guys did there is you build it from the inside out. Yeah. You guys formed maybe the best offensive line in all of football. And now when you hear Joe talk, says that's going to be an emphasis for us, not only this year, but moving forward forever long I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. We've always talked about that in Indianapolis, and pretty much everywhere else does it as well. It's, hey, you got to build inside out. It starts with the front, makes life easier on the back end for both sides of the ball. So that's something we're going to continue to do here and develop within the Jets organization, develop within our roster in terms of a competitive situation where we're constantly bringing in guys to push those starters and potential starters and guys we can develop down the road.
So I just want to get into your background a little bit before you get going here, because you're a very busy man as the assistant GM. So, where were you, let's just say, 20 years ago this time of year?
Oh, man.
You're probably at Notre Dame 20 years ago.
20 years ago, I was at Notre Dame. We had just finished up we were finishing up with the draft class and going into the offseason for 2000 season, which turned out to be a great season for us. We ended up going to the Fiesta Bowl, lost unfortunately, but 20 years ago was right after signing day, and you're already transitioned into the next class, and so it brings back good memories back in the state again.
What stands out to you most about your long run with the Chicago Bears, and maybe you could talk about a couple of your mentors along the way, namely Jerry Angelo?
Yeah, exactly. So I had gotten to know Jerry when I was at Notre Dame as a pro liaison, had a chance to come through, and you kind of develop relationships with guys who want to talk about, players and, hey, tell me a little about this guy. What do you think about him? And so it kind of helped you, clear your mindset in terms of an evaluator at the college level and how we had to project from high school to college. You do the same thing in the NFL, projecting guys from college to the pros, but Jerry really helped me with that. We had a great run there. Went to the Super Bowl, lost to the Colts again.
Ironically, right?
But, and competed in the NFC Championship. Second time, after winning it on that year that we went to the Super Bowl. But, man, it was a great run, great city, great time. We had a lot of great guys. Our college staff was awesome. We had, Chris is now the general manager for the Colts. So had a really good group, a lot of good guys, man, a lot of good mentors helped me out and get into the league.
How did your roles change over time there?
Progressed from an area scout into a national scout, going over the top, not only west of the Mississippi for a few years and then east of the Mississippi, living in Nashville, and my wife working at Vanderbilt. Southeast was always kind of a stronghold on college football, so I was able to stay there and live there and get a good balance of not only the SEC but all over the country.
I love Nashville.
Yeah, it's a great city. Great city, man. It was a lot of fun. We were there 12 years, and my wife worked there at Vanderbilt for 11 years and 11 seasons. Saw a lot of good college football players come through there. And, Jay Cutler was a quarterback for Vanderbilt at that point, and then James Franklin came in and took over. They had a nice run as well. So we ended up having a lot of players on the roster in Chicago from Vanderbilt. At one point we had Jay Cutler, Chris Williams, Earl Bennett, DJ Moore, and Hunter Hillemeyer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, nice group of guys and starting players, and played well for us.
You played collegiately at Austin Peay, but what led you to Notre Dame? Because you mentioned Notre Dame to start here 20 years ago. You were with the Fighting Irish and Urban Meyer, but how did you land there?
Yeah, networking more than anything else. I was working in the private business sector in Nashville, and was at the point where I was like, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, and so called a guy who had a connection with a family friend, had a guy who was an assistant athletic director within the athletic department, and they were looking for an internship for an intern within the athletic department, and went up on an interview and did well enough to get the job, and started out, the wages were small, but the job was, in my eyes, was huge, and it was a great opportunity. I grew up a huge Notre Dame fan, so I had a younger brother who was enrolled in school there at that point too. So it was good. My whole family grew up Notre Dame fans, so it was kind of like a lifelong dream.
But what did you do at Notre Dame for Urban, and then later on, you must have did a good job because when he went to Utah, he said, Rex, come on, I got another position for you.
Yeah, so I was working in the recruiting and operations aspect there with the football team, and Bob Davie was our head coach, and on that staff we had a tremendous staff. We had Urban Meyer, head coach, and as well as he's done, Steve Adazio, who's been a head coach at Temple and Boston College, now at Colorado State. Dan Mullen was a graduate assistant, now the head coach of Florida. And then John DiFilippo was a graduate assistant who's gone on and been successful in the NFL as an offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. So really good staff. And, had a good ability with not only him, but Greg Madison was another guy who served as a mentor in terms of evaluations and the way they saw players. And so, Urban and I hit it off. He went to Bowling Green with Dan Mullen. From that aspect, we went for 2 years and then transitioned to the University of Utah. So gave me an opportunity to go with him as director of operations and recruiting coordinator. So went out there before transitioned to Chicago.
Yeah, did you think you're going to be in the college game for a while?
I thought so. But the change in the recruiting aspect and Jerry Angelo, made a great point to me. Hey, what do you want to see yourself doing 5 years from now?
Yeah.
I see you light up when you start talking about player evaluations as opposed to the operations aspect. So he was right on, spot on with it, and then talked me into making the transition, making the change to the NFL. And 17 seasons later, man, it's been a great run.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, for somebody that's been in the college game, now the pro game, and you have so many different roles, and clearly you love football. Anyone that's sitting where you are as an assistant GM loves football. But what is it about the sport that that originally made you want to be a part of it, and still to this day you love about it?
Yeah, it's the competition and the camaraderie and the relationships that you build, because it's everybody. It's a very unique sport, as we all know. That there's 11 guys in one common goal of winning. And, it's so much different from the basketball, from baseball, that you can have some individual, accolades in terms of performance. And one guy can carry 5 guys in basketball, but it's tough for one guy to carry 11 in football. But more than anything else, I think it's the common goal and the common drive that it's winning above everything when you get down to it. And if everybody's focused on that and has a competitive drive and the passion for it, then everything's going to progress well for you in terms of your organization.
Rex, what do you think about this group that you're working with now? Joe up at the top, but then Chad Alexander, we talked to him yesterday. Phil Savage and the experience he brings to the team. John Carr. I mean, we can go to the pro side and talk about Greg Nejma, but what can you say about these guys behind the scenes? I mean, because Joe obviously at the forefront.
Yeah, it's a great group, man. We've I knew everybody previously from being on the road, and the scouting community is a small world when you get out on the road and you make school visits and you develop relationships and along the way. And I got to know Joe, I got to know Chad, I got to know Phil. Didn't really know Greg until my first run with the Jets, but it's been great, man. The 3 guys who we talked about first, each one of them has over 20 years of experience in the NFL. And they were all in Baltimore and have won Super Bowls. And Joe's transitioned from, Baltimore, went to Chicago before he went to Philly and won another Super Bowl. So, just leaning on those guys and their perspective of how they did it, how they won Super Bowls. And hopefully collectively as a group we can bring all that together and mean good things for the Jets down the road.
Real quick before we let you go, you've been on the road a lot. What's your go-to snack?
Almonds or cashews or protein bars.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. That's all protein.
That's the EA diet.
I like that. So you excited for what's ahead over the next couple months here? Before you know it, you're going to be back. You're going to have your final free agency meetings, and you're going to be hosting people, talking to people, negotiating, and filling some holes, because Joe said it clearly. Hey, listen, we got some holes to fill. We know that, and we're going to attack them, but we're not going to be reckless with our decisions. And then I got to imagine you in your position would echo the sentiments as maybe free agency is where you plug those holes, so you never want to go into a draft where you're reaching for a need.
Right. But 21 UFAs like you talked about and 3 RFAs, that's 24 spots that you're going to have to take care of through free agencies. It's going to be tough. We have 8 draft picks. So, not only that, then we also have the undrafted free agents after the draft as well,
sure.
in terms of guys to add to our roster and the competition to add. So, yeah, it's an awesome moment when you sit down and think about it. You're like, man, we got a chance to turn this roster over and to add new life, younger players, guys that are going to contribute and make us better as a team. So it's really exciting. We talk about it as a group all the time of, hey, each day we've got to go out and look for Jets.
How nice of a feeling is it to come to Indianapolis, and the quarterbacks always drive things. With the Colts, you guys had Andrew Luck for a while, so you knew you were set there. Now you have a quarterback in Sam Darnold, a Sunday player who's just 22 years old. How nice is it to be in that position as you try to continue to build this team?
Yeah, it's a comforting feeling, especially with 22 and Sam and how good he's been for us and how he's going to continue to get better. So he's just scratching the surface in terms of what he can be as a player. Yeah, like you said, he's 22 years old. I think there's guys who are quarterbacks in this year's draft who are older.
Joe Burrow is 6 months older than Sam.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's a very comforting fact to know that we can add pieces around him and build around him. And we've got our franchise quarterback of the future. So, or presently. So we're going to continue to build around him. So yeah, it's a great feeling to have, and we'll just add pieces.
All right, Rex. Well, thanks for coming on the official Jet podcast powered by Amazon Web Services.
Now we'll see him running down the hallway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll see you do your 40-yard dash down the skywalk here.
Oh yeah, and forever.
Thanks, Rex.
Thanks,
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.